जी, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Naeem Mushtaq here. Keep smiling and keep moving. Today we are very blessed and honored to have Dr. Amineh Ahmed Hoti, who is the author of Gems and Jewels, The Religions of Pakistan. And this is one of the first edition, 2021. And this is a very good book. We will be covering the book contents also, but ma'am, thank you so much for your precious time. She's very, very busy, and I don't know how I was able to get her time. Seems to be a miracle for me. So ma'am, first of all, tell us something about yourself in your own words.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. So first of all, brother Mushtaq, Dr. Saab, thank you so much for this time of yours. I appreciate, I've been watching your interviews. They're all fantastic. They're really giving us a variety of perspective on Pakistan. So really appreciate that and appreciate your work. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on your program. Normally I'm very shy, so I really appreciate this mocha that I can talk to you and be with you and explore some ideas.
So I've seen your work on internet, YouTube, your interviews, your work here also, and I'm also involved in interfaith dialogue, and I'm very impressed with the work you have done, The Religions of Pakistan. And I think there are 10 chapters in the book, and in each chapter you have covered one religion in Pakistan. So there are 10 religions that you have covered in the book. But before I come back to this project, I want my audience to know your background. You belongs to Swat, and there's another interesting history that people mostly do not know, including myself. What is that Swat background that makes you special to and your contribution in your development of interfaith dialogue in Pakistan and abroad?
Gee, well, thank you.
And I also know that you have a Sufi background. So give us a brief, historical background of your Swat background and how the Sufi tradition merged into that.
Well, I did my PhD, just stepping back, I did my PhD at the University of Cambridge.
MashaAllah.
And I was director there of a center. It was the world's first center.
MashaAllah.
But I often thought of myself as so privileged and so lucky, alhamdulillah, with Rabbi's help. Because often there were very few people, Dr. Saab, in my classes from a Pakistani background. And there were even fewer women. I mean, in all the years that I studied there, hardly saw any woman in my department. Maybe one boy, but that was it. And there were a lot of people from different countries, including India and other countries. So I thought, it's very important that we do education and strive for it. Now, why I thought it was such a privilege, because my own father, who's a very distinguished professor, scholar, ambassador, you have interviewed him in your show. He's also related to Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. His grandfather was Sir Hashmatullah Khan. So he comes from a very distinguished background, an academic, spiritual background. His father was a quiet Sufi saint, very special when partition happened. They invited all the refugees to their house. They had a beautiful house in Karachi with 2 big tennis courts. And they opened it up to all the refugees. And they said, everybody is welcome for our food. So their kitchen, my father says, would run throughout. None of them would ask, ye kaun hai, kahan se hai, kyun aaye hai. They would say, you're welcome. And I think that's the beautiful spirit. Now, my father's written many books, and according to the BBC, he's one of the leading voices on contemporary Islam.
No doubt about it, yeah.
So he has been a wonderful friend, a saint, a father, and deeply inspiring to me, despite all the challenges I faced.
MashaAllah.
Now, from my mother's side, my mother is the great-granddaughter of the saint of Swat.
MashaAllah.
So his name is Saidu Baba.
Saidu Baba.
And Swat's capital is named Saidu Sharif after him.
Oh, okay, MashaAllah.
So Gigi. So what happened was he was a shepherd initially and a very humble person, and he sat by the river Swat for about 12 years.
Okay.
And there he got totally lost in the ibadat and in the connection to beloved Rabbi.
MashaAllah.
And people began to really appreciate that because, you know, everybody loves depth, especially of the human soul. So he gained a great amount of respect in Swat.
MashaAllah.
And at that time, the British armies were coming and coming into the areas of Swat. So the people of Swat gathered and said, please lead us against the British, the invaders. And Seydou Baba, of course, was spiritual, so he said, no, I can't do that. But the people said, no, if you don't, we'll be lost. So you must do that. So then he sat on his horse, he led his people. Now can you imagine the, you know, sort of Ajiz army of just well-wishers. But they overcame the British, one of the biggest superpowers of that time.
Wow.
And they protected that state, that area.
MashaAllah.
But Swat was not an independent state. So his son and grandson were both asked if they could become kings, and so was Seydou Baba, and they said, Seydou Baba said, no, I don't want power. His son said, I don't want power. But his grandson was smarter and worldly wise. Those other two were smarter in the hereafter. So his grandson took the post of the king. So he became the first Badshah, the king of Swat.
MashaAllah.
And his son was the Wali of Swat. And in his time, Swat was one of the most organized states. So there was swift justice. And he is known to give food to the poor and charity, and it was very orderly. The roads, the schools, the university, set up a university. So all these things in a time when South Asia was going through a very turbulent time, and also being challenged by different forces around. So they were able not only to maintain their spirituality, but also in dunyavi sense, you know, the balance between deen and dunya.
Yes.
They were able to keep that and maintain that. So my mother is the son of Alamzeb, who's the son of the Wali of Swat. And my mother's father was also Hafiz-e-Quran.
MashaAllah.
So he was very spiritual, and he lived in a little room all his life. Someone gave him a boiler, because Swat is very cold, as you can imagine. Someone gave him a boiler to keep his water warm. But he said there's some poor needy person who needs it much more than I do.
Exactly.
So he gave it to him. So he was very ajiz all his life. Now his children are also very impressive, because my mother is a lovely person, very strong, very firm. She's been the pillar with my father. She's side to side, shoulder to shoulder, helped him with his academic work. He's been ambassador. He's written 20 books for Pakistan, Islam, etc.
Yes. MashaAllah.
So that has really, you know, been an inspiration. My mother's sister has also done tremendous work in Swat. So she lives in the US, but she comes every in a year for about a couple of months to Swat, and she really works. You know, she puts up her sleeves and she goes into the villages and she set up schools for orphan girls. She's redone the hospitals, the government hospitals. She talks about nutrition, because a lot of kids would have papar. And it's not healthy for their health. So she would say, "Nay, don't have papar, that's bad for your health. Have a boiled egg instead." So she really helped them improve their mental, because food is so important, your nutrition. It helps you mentally, physically, in every way. So that's a little background, and I can go on and on, but I want to keep it short to give you a context.
I would suggest to write a biography, because this is such a rich intellectual and historical data in it. It is, I would say, the iman of Pakistani people, that what happened in Swat and how the development of Swat took place. Now, looking at this, you know, concept of yours, mixing spirituality with faith, interfaith especially, because sometimes interfaith dialogue is carried out by theologians, and when they discuss theology, they usually focus on what is so different between us and them. But when you enter a spiritual and Sufi tradition in interfaith dialogue, the focus changes. The focus is on what is so common between us. And this is the approach of Dr. Akbar Ahmed also, and yours also. I've been looking at this book, Gems and Jewels. tell me how this idea came into being, and what was the, I would say, the desire, the requirement behind this project.
Gee, that's a really good question. So the book was sponsored by my dear brother, Mr. Isfanyar Bhandara, who's from the Parsi community. And he came to me and he said, should I write a book on flashy, fancy cars or on the religions of Pakistan? This is my choice because I'm a philanthropist. He's got, you know, the money to sponsor it. So I said, of course, do it on the religions of Pakistan. It's such a good project, and there's so many religions here. And I had been living, as I said, in Cambridge, but I came back to Pakistan. And while I was here, Dr. Saab, I noticed that there were this fantastic array of people, but I had not really got to know them. So this book gave me a chance to really go out into and across Pakistan. So I went all the way up to the Kalasha and lived with them, spent time with them. You know, it was freezing in there. It was so cold, it was December. And we were supposed to catch a PIA flight, but you know, the flights, the system is unreliable. So it got cancelled. We were in our car, the driver was supposed to drop us. Instead, I said, you know, Bhai, can you take us all the way up to Chitral? 17 hours.
Wow.
He had no clothes because he wasn't prepared for the journey.
Exactly.
So we drove all the way up with my two daughters.
Wow,
we went up on a very bumpy road. I just had a back injury, but I was prepared to do it no matter what. And we spent many days with the Kalasha, very warm, wonderful, rich culture. I learned so much. It's such a beautiful place, and I learned so many things that challenged me in my own ignorance. Then we went to interior Sindh, down, you know, to Karachi, to Sindh. We went to see the Gori Mandir, which is almost close to the Indian border. So stunning, stunning treasures that we have in Pakistan. And then I began to read these beautiful books. Someone gave me this book called the Shah Jo Risalo. And when I read it, I said, wow, you know, where have I been so far? How come I've not read this book as a compulsory read in my education, in school here in Pakistan? So these are treasures. I read Waris Shah's Heer Ranja, which is another beautiful book. And these are in detail, so each one is a metaphor for what's happening. So we'll talk about, you know, the details. But when I came across this diversity, Dr. Saab, amongst the Muslims, amongst the Sikhs, the Baha'is, the Buddhists, the Hindus, even a Jewish community in Pakistan, I was so amazed. And the Parsis, I literally reflected to myself and I said, look, I'm from the majority and we're comfortable in our own identity. But we've got to challenge ourselves. And how do we challenge ourselves? By stepping out of our comfort zone and encountering the other. So encounter with the personal other with a sense of respect, mutual respect, and compassion is very important. And that's what this book allowed me to do. So through the book, we had this idea that, oh, Parsis are fire worshippers, Buddhists are statue. All this is wrong. This is our ignorance. It's not. It doesn't say anything about the communities, because the communities have such beautiful teachings to teach us. Even if you see the.
How long it took you? Sorry to cut you. How long it took you?
It took me about 5 years altogether. And right at the end of the book, I also fell ill. I was diagnosed for cancer. And so through my treatment, through my chemotherapy, and I was with my parents abroad. So the designer, who was fantastic, is Topical Press. Wonderful, wonderful people. But the designer was sitting in Lahore. I was sitting in America. So we had a whole world apart. And I would, 2 o'clock in the morning, while I'm supposed to be recovering and resting, I would call him and get every word right, because sometimes I'd say, okay, write for Hassan Abdal, Panja Sahib. And then he'd send it back saying Punjab. So we'd constantly be going forward, backward, forward, backward. So it took a lot of struggle, but when I was reading these stories again of all the Sufis and the saints, they were so inspiring that during my time of illness, it gave me such strength.
The way I look at it, the way I look at you working on this project, I feel that maybe Sedo Baba is reincarnated. Maybe he is doing the work through you. Because when you're doing this kind of work and with your illness and travel also, this is also, I would say, is Salahuddin Ayyubi in action. When you're traveling from here to Chitral without any planning and suddenly move, this is the Salahuddin Ayyubi's lifestyle in crusades. Because sometimes he doesn't move through plan, he just moves through the spiritual inspiration.
First of all, let me say that that's too kind of you. I'm just an Ajaz scholar and someone who adores the beloved Rabbi and humanity, but no more than that.
Yeah, I know that.
So
but
I really appreciate
there's a very good song
your kind words.
in English. There's a very good song in English. Legends never die. They just become a part of you. So legends, they move from one body to another body. Maybe Sedo Baba moved from his body to your father's body. Maybe from your father's body you got it in your body, and who knows where he moves from your body to your next generation. So this is the Sufi traditions. When one Sufi was in one body, he was known as Ibn al-Arabi. When he moved from this body to another body, that body was known as Rumi. So this is the light of prophethood, basically. That in each and every Sufi body there is the light of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is the essence of Sufism and Sufi saints. Without that light, no one becomes Sufi. So that is the essence. I see that intellectually, you could say it intellectually, spiritually, but that is the light behind all the creative work. And I will be showing you this book later on. There's a book review also, and I did not introduce myself to Dr. Hoti because I have added a slide in the beginning. You have seen his complete introduction. I just wanted to focus on her in that book. But just to give you a brief idea of the printing quality, and you can have a tea. We have a tea also. And if you look at the book, and maybe you cannot see it here, and one thing I'm happy about, number one, is the price. If you go to a bookshop where this book is on shelf and you look at the other books also of the same quality, the minimum price would be 15 to 25,000 rupees Pakistani, and with this quality, international quality, the price is only 4,000 rupees. It's just like 400 rupees in Pakistan as compared to the standard and quality. And each and every page is an art page, and there are, I would say this is like Ottoman style of printing books. They just don't concentrate on contents. Putting spirit in the design work. This is like orientalistic approach or a calligraphic approach. And Mary Schimmel, she wrote a book, Calligraphy and Islam. And she said one reason the spread of Islam is this calligraphic beauty. Many people accepted Islam just looking at the words of the Quranic calligraphy. So this book is the combination of, you see, with the pictures. You can sense the spirit through pictures, and that is the beauty of the printing process. And I think I would suggest to please go ahead with the Urdu translation, because this book I would say is a great addition in the interfaith tradition of the Pakistani, talent and wisdom. It should be translated into Urdu language, and also should be a part of curriculum for the MPhil and PhD student.
Inshallah, that is.
And I'm sure it is going to be, but I will be giving a separate interview for this book. Now, ma'am, another thing, when as a Muslim we go to mandir, we go to Gurdwara, we visit a church, we go to Jewish synagogue, And if you have a Sufi background and tradition, you will feel the presence of God everywhere. You cannot say that God is just the God of Muslims. When you talk to a Jewish brother and sister, when you talk to a Hindu brother and sister, when you talk to a Sikh and Hindu, you feel like God is talking through them. How do you, for my audience, I'm like, if they want to develop the skill of listening God through other faiths, how do they do that? Or what's your experience?
Yes.
How did you discover God through these experiences?
That's a very, very good question, Dr. Saab. First of all, we all know that in all the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, there's a concept that God blew his spirit into humanity, into Adam. So every human being is potentially God's ambassador, his Khalifa. And also his reflection. Because there's also, I did a little bit of art and a bit of study of art history, and I learned that every artist's work is a reflection of his essence. You know, it's his love, his time, his part of his being gone into there. It's a little bit of his imprints as he draws. Therefore, we are God's creatures. And when we all fight with each other like children and we say, oh, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. This is just ego. And all the Sufis, Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai, Rumi, Ibn al-Arabi, Waris Shah, all of them, Bulle Shah, they all talk about overcoming the biggest challenge which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself talked about. And because once a battle was over, he went back into his community and he said the big jihad is now to come.
Exactly.
Which is our own ego. We are just over with the small jihad.
Exactly.
So the point is that even in Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai's beautiful book, the Shahjo Risalo, because he's considered the Shakespeare of Sindh, and his book is considered almost like a holy book. So Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai in his book says, do not consider my words as a play or entertainment. These are words from the Quran. So when he was writing, all his work is inspired by two main sources. One is the Quran, which he held in his hand, and one is Rumi's Matnavi. So he's inspired by those beautiful and grand ideas. And therefore, those are the things that inspire us and we must hold on to.
So in your books, Gems and Jewels, what is this, for one question is about the name. What is the concept behind the names?
Yes, that's a good question. The concept behind the name of Gems and Jewels was that initially my brother Bhandara came up to me and said, you know, one of the political leaders had said that all the minorities of Pakistan are ye hamare zevarat hain. You know, they're like treasures for us. So I said, "Theek hai, I liked that idea, but coming from a political leader was interesting, but I wanted something deeper." So I began to read with this book. See, I was interviewing people across Pakistan, visiting sites, doing field work, which is part of my subject, which is social anthropology, which I did at Cambridge, but also reading. So within those books that I came across, and these are very big treasures. For example, Data Saab's The Kashful Mahjoob,
Yes, I agree.
or Shahjo Risalo. All of these books talked about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the Khalifas, and all the precious people as gems and jewels.
MashaAllah.
Now, Waris Shah in Heer Ranja describes Heer as a ruby.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yes. And in another book, Rasulullah is described by one of the Turkish authors as a pearl. And Lady Amineh, his mother, is described as a pearl. So these references I found exist in all the texts. Then in Buddhism, some of the Buddhist teachings are referred to again as treasures. And those two are, you know, there's a whole depth in that. So all the religions talk about this wisdom. One is a worldly pearls and jewels and gems, but these are much more precious. And these are the true gems and jewels that we have to value. So I found so many in Pakistan, because when I was doing my PhD in the UK, and we had 9/11 happen, and then 7/7 happen, and then non-stop in the media, people kept saying that, you know, oh, Muslims are like this, and especially Pakistanis are like this, and equal to, you know, militant or terrorist or extremists. And then, you know, these young boys and girls growing up in the West, suddenly they say, hey, is my background so bad? Then I don't want to be part of that. You know, I want to be far away from it. But what I did was, when I came back, I too was a little bit sort of, you know, never shunning, but I wanted to know more. And these beautiful books, Warisha, Shajo Risalo, all of these gave me that ground where I said, oh my gosh, this is treasure. How do I bring that in this book? And so we have that and the voices of people. So you have the human beings who are who are gems, but you've also got the books who describe other saints of Allah and all the waliullahs as gems. Because you see, what is a gem? A gem is a stone, but through time and through a lot of pain and trouble and difficulty, it is polished. And when it's polished like kundan, it comes out into something shiny or special or attractive. And that's how the human soul is.
Now, for the audience, for the viewers, on page 12 and 13 of the book, why use the words gems and jewels? The complete philosophy is there. You can also go through with the references on all the other areas. This is beautiful. Now, we were talking about the youth. You just mentioned. I would divide youth into male and female, especially. This seems to be also, to me, an encyclopedia of love distributed by God Almighty into different form of religions. And I think the message, one message is common in all the religion, is to the God and Allah Almighty will judge you how you behave with one another. And when it comes to behaving with one another, we have two aspects. One is our own family, and the second is the family. Like there is a very famous hadith of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The whole creation is Allah's family. And the best among you is he who is good to his family.
Yes,
so
true,
Jews, Christians, everyone is Allah's family.
All of them, yes.
And that's why our Holy Prophet is considered, is called the Rahmatul Lil Alameen.
True.
He is a mercy for everyone. And he will be taking the case of a Christian, you know, or the Jew or the Hindu or the, you know, on the Day of Judgment, he will be their lawyer. So these traditions are there. Now, coming to the youth, you have also written a book on how to teach youth about the comparative religion, or how to develop tolerant attitude. But in the youth, most importantly, let's discuss about how we train our daughters, because they are the most sensitive part of family, and they will be the one, if they are trained properly, the male youth will be automatically, you know, half of the problem will be solved, because they will be becoming mothers, they will be the wives. So if, what's your experience, and how do you see how people can train their daughters, their female communities, in developing this concept, so that when they become mothers, you know, half of the responsibility is done at home?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, Dr. Saab. So 2 points in that. One is that this book was written taking my anthropological background, so being methodologically very academic. I did field work, participant observation and all, so it was very rigorously done.
MashaAllah.
But on the other hand, the voice that's presented is very accessible. So anyone can read it, and it's for the general public. You've got pictures, you've got stories, you've got voices. And so it's quite a sought after book on a coffee table, because it's only a limited edition.
Exactly.
There are only 1,000 copies printed. So the 200 million Pakistanis cannot have it.
Yeah.
in their homes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's sought after.
I'm just trying to.
But in the book, Dr. Saab, I've brought out the voices of men, women, and especially the female population of each community. So I've talked to them, brought their stories out, brought their dard out. I think the key thing in our society is often we stop people. We say, oh, we're a man, this is a woman can't do studies, women can't do work, women can't do these certain things. But by doing that, you're limiting yourself. Whereas if you encourage the creativity of women and men, because God made human beings in His own image.
Exactly.
And God loves creativity.
Exactly.
So if God loves creativity, then how can you limit a woman to a char diwari?
Exactly.
That is a cultural concept which came from other traditional tribal societies. And in fact, there have been studies done that 2,000 years ago, so that's way prior to these religions, women were locked in the house only because there was a lot of sun in South Asia. So the sun was so hot, it's much more safer to be inside cooler.
Yeah.
So parda initially came about from this. So there's a book on this which I found really fascinating. I didn't know about this. So that was interesting. But then another concept is haya. Haya and dignity. And for me, that's very important. For me, that defines female and male characters.
Exactly.
So it's very important to have haya and dignity. And I think, as Quaid-e-Azam said, it's very important to encourage women. Because he rightly said that if you educate women, you have an educated nation.
Exactly.
And his own sister, you saw, was with him in public, side by side. He didn't lock her up and himself go around and then having double standards. You can't do that when you say, oh, I'll do this and I'll do the bad things and do the hypocrisy and the double standards, but my wife will be a saint. That's simply injustice. It's injustice.
Exactly.
It's not right, and it's guna and it's zulam. So what you do is you say, yes, both of us will try our best to stay as much as we can, humanly possible, on the neek rah and in the middle. Because, all the religions talk about the middle path. None of the extremes. Both extremes are injustice, again, they're wrong. So again, encouraging our women is simply success. Encouraging them to study, to work, and Pakistan has to do that for its own women. Because yes, we say other women should study, but my woman should be in the house. And that's not right. Therefore, I appreciate, Dr. Saab, my father.
MashaAllah.
Because my father, at least for me, and for my sister, Nafis, who went to MIT and Harvard, she did a double MBA just now, and is working in, mashallah, one of the top companies. But he encouraged both of us girls to get out to work. Sometimes I had challenges. I wasn't, culturally I was restrained, but he said, no, you have to do it. This is your only choice.
Exactly. And we now were also in the battlefield.
Yes.
They were working side by side with the male Sahabas for the development of original Riyasat-e-Madinah.
Yes, yeah, true.
And I was just wanted to show this picture from the book. This is a family picture.
Yes.
This is a Hindu community, right?
No, this is Parsi.
Parsi, okay.
And this is brother Bhandara, who sponsored the book, and his wife Jasmine, and his two lovely sons.
So what I wanted to show is that this is not just a scholarly book, this is a family book where family traditions and values are in action.
Yes, yes.
With the interfaith spirit.
Yes.
And I can also see wow.
And that's important to keep the balance between
this is a
deen
beautiful mixture of seems to be an art book, not a theological book, but you can look at it. So tell me, I know, being an author for myself, when I'm writing a book on Islam, Siratul Nabi, I go through a lot of spiritual experiences which are not in the book. But those experiences makes me a better person before writing a book and after finishing a book. So what were those unique spiritual experiences that are not in the book, but you got them by writing this book or by working on this book?
That's a very good question, Dr. Saab. You seem to have aligned a very good list of questions. So Dr. Saab, in each community, as I mentioned, each community, and please do at the end read out which communities I've mentioned, I met people in whom I saw great hope. I saw humanity, I saw humility, I saw dignity, I saw a reflection of God in each community. Whether it was Christian, there was Dr. James Shearer, who's the mayor of Rugby. Now he's from the Christian faith, but he to me has been like an uncle.
Oh, mashallah.
He calls me Beta.
Mashallah.
And he reached out to me, Dr. Sara Safdar, again from the Christian community. And wonderful. Sometimes, I send her some of my stuff. And she says, you're not just a miracle baby for your father, who you saved, but you're also a miracle baby for your nation and all of us. So, I mean, these are very encouraging and kind and family words, so you develop a relationship with all of these wonderful people. There's Dr. Seema from the Baha'i community. Again, when I see her and when she smiles and she's so warm and affectionate, I really feel she's like my sister. There's no difference. And there's so many others. There was from the Parsi community, there were two sisters. They were called Rati and Perin. And Rati was, you see, when partition happened, Rati remained in India. And Perin came to Lahore. And suddenly, the relations between the two countries went bad, and we had so many wars together, unfortunately. Because really, we are neighbors. We should work on all these positive bonds that we have. But relations have become so sour and so sensitive. It's toxic for both sides and not helpful in any way. So Rati, Perin were divided by an artificial line, by a line. It's a national line which we respect and we must respect. My point is that for them, for the two sisters, they couldn't meet. So all these points reminded me, and they were beautiful characters. They're both very, very lovely people. And they're both educationists. Perin is so distinguished that Kanade College has named an amphitheater, which is a whole theater, after her. She's been teaching generations of Pakistani girls, English and Shakespeare and Bernard Shaw and all. So when I saw these communities, Dr. Saab, I really said, here is a reflection of the beloved Rabbi's artwork at its best. And that's what Prince Hassan of Jordan says. Prince Hassan says that, here, if you read I would like you to read the blurb where he says it's, if you read right at the back, Dr. Saab, right behind, if you flip the whole book over, thank you, Ji. So it says, His Royal Highness Prince Hassan bin Talal of Jordan says, Gems and Jewels, the Religions of Pakistan is a glorious read, accessible, enjoyable, a radiating resonance of vivid human images, of voices, faces and places, a celebration of the richness of diversity that connects us with the beauty of the different and of the human character at its best.
MashaAllah.
That's a beautiful blurb he kindly gave.
And there is
now, Dr. Saab, you asked the question about spirituality. So while I was finishing this book and editing it, so you mean I had the whole book in front of me. And while I was finishing it, Dr. Saab, I came across the story of Imam Busiri, who wrote the Burda on the Prophet. Now he had some illness, and he was, in one of those moments in the night, and he was really in a desperate state. When your body is not well, and I too had cancer, and it was a lethal cancer, it was a deadly cancer, so it was HER2, and that's an aggressive type of cancer. And I was suddenly snatched out of my work doing Sirat work. I was a program director at the HEC. So here I was, I'd left my work on the Sirat, and I really felt sad about that because, I was beginning to really understand and respect and, appreciate the work of Rasulullah. And I came across this beautiful story where Imam Busiri is at night and he's in the state of ibadat. And he's talking to the beloved, and he's physically not well. He's for life he's gone health-wise. But he thinks of beloved Rabbi, and he writes this beautiful poem on Rasulullah. beautiful poem.
MashaAllah.
And today that's one of the most famous poem from which one line is taken, which is on Salahuddin Ayyubi's tomb.
Oh, MashaAllah.
And every Ramzan on PTV and all the programs, that one line is read about the love of Rasulullah,
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
peace be upon him. And so that inspired me so much. So when the Prophet heard about this, or when he received this poem, he loved it so much that he gave his own mantle, his own shawl to him. And then I believe the next day or two he became well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was such an inspiring story for me at that stage of my own illness. So for me, this book was something like that, which is a love of God. It's because it's dedicated to God. So, and He's the God of all people. He's the God of Christians, Jews, Muslims, Parsis, Buddhists, Baha'is, Muslims, and on and on and on. And of animals, and of the minerals and the earth. So that was very inspiring to me, and therefore people said, oh, are you going to dedicate this book to me? Someone said to me, someone said to me, and they were sure, because my father's been such a support. Everybody said, I'm going, she's going to dedicate this book to her father.
MashaAllah.
But I dedicated it to Allah, and I would like you to read the dedication. Let me read it, Dr. Sahib.
मेरी बेसिकली दूर की अनक है वो
कोई बात नहीं, that's fine. So Dr. Sahib, it says here, and this is
I wanted to ask
Ji.
the question I
So
had also.
Beautiful little Islamic motive here, and it says, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. It says, this book is dedicated to the deeply beloved, who created the nations and tribes of the earth, that they may know one another. From them come those whom the scholars and saints call gems and jewels. And therefore, the title of the book, Gems and Jewels.
MashaAllah.
And this is a quote from the Quran. It's referring to the Quran and Sufi tradition.
MashaAllah. We are running out of time. One observation rather, I would say, based on your book and my personal experience. Jews, they have their holy book, the Torah. The Christians have Holy Bible, the New Testament. We Muslims have Holy Quran, and the other religions, they also have their holy books. So there is one holy book which is, maintained or claimed by every religion. Then there is another book, the Book of Life, and every religion owns it. So may I say, by looking at the book, this is not only a book of wisdom, but this is a book of life. Life experiences are compiled in these books, and those experiences are based on various theological verses, chapters of all the books. Message is the same: love your neighbor. And this book is a beautiful, I would say, is the encyclopedia to show how you may love your neighbor. By protecting their religious sites, by protecting their rights, by considering them a part of God's family. And I think this book is a beautiful combination. This is a modernized version of Kashful Majoob and all the religious Sufi traditions. This is the format is different, the language is different, but I think this is the same message which has been conveyed in Kashful Majoob and other Sufi tradition books. And by looking at your name, who has done the work, she's another Sufi. We don't have any tradition in Islam is to declare someone as a saint, but the time will tell. Like Data Ganj Bakhsh, Imam Rumi, Ghazali, Ibn al-Armi, they have done their part, and the Ummah recognizes them. And I think, and the Ummah recognizes a person based on the divine, instruction, or maybe the natural laws are activated by God Almighty to recognize. To me, she has done a great work, mashallah, mashallah. May Allah give you more health and wisdom to carry on this work. I hope that the Urdu version will be there sometime for the ordinary people to experience this tradition. And more books will be coming from your side also. Allah has. So anyway, thank you very much, ma'am Amineh. Any last word for our viewers?
Well, first of all, Dr. Saab, thank you so much. Really honored and by your kind words. I don't deserve them. I see myself as very arduous, very human, and truly, truly, truly grateful to love beloved Rabbi, who I don't see as far away and an abstract, but really, you know, he's in each book of his, you know, he said, believe in all the books and all the prophets and all these wonderful communities he's made, believe in all of them and love and respect them. So the honor for someone simple and arduous like myself and ordinary like myself is that I was able to meet them. I was able to learn from them. I was had the privilege, Rabbi put me in the position to write the book. So even on the moment that I was, you know, going into surgery for my cancer surgery, I said, look, I've made this commitment to both beloved Rabbi, but also to Brother Bhandara and to my nation and to the world community. So whatever happens, I'm not going to rest. They all said, rest karo, rest karo. I said, no. So all night I was up, and just before the surgery, I sent the manuscript, and then I went off in the car with my mother. But my father said that this reminded him of those stories when the scholars, you know, they were on the last moment, but they would make sure that the work is sent in. So may Rabbi accept this from us, and may Rabbi accept this. It's a small, humble effort, but it's full of love for him.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching, and I will be giving all the, you know, links of Dr. Amineh's social media accounts. So if you want to contact her, you can contact her directly. And I will also be giving the detailed, you know, contact address where you can get this book also. And we will have our tea now.
Yes, please. Yes, Bismillah.
So thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.